the best way to kind of get rid of that tired and wired is to have a wind down sort of approach. So I've often used what I call a 3-2-1 approach, which is 3 hours before bed, try to stop the eating window. So just like we have a nighttime curfew, we should actually have a food curfew as well, because if we're eating right up until the moment we go to bed, that actually gets our bodies going. It takes a lot of energy to actually digest our food. Most people don't really think about that, but it's actually pretty energy intensive.
Hi, everybody, and welcome back to the Modern Sage podcast. I'm Leah Guy, your host. And as I always say, I'm super excited that you're here because this is a place where you can become informed and inspired to live your best life, to expand your perception and your possibilities, and to really thrive. So I'm really happy that you're here. If you're enjoying these podcasts, I ask that you please leave us a rating, a review, share it with your friends. Our guests are top notch. They're really experts in their field, and they also share the vulnerable parts of their life and their passion with everyone. So it does all of us a lot of good when you share that. Just as a reminder, you can follow me on social media at Leah Guy Live, and you'll find the podcast promos, information about my workshops, retreats, events, and so much more. And you can also find that on my website, leahguy.com. For those who like to see our guests, you are welcome to watch these podcasts in full on the YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/A Girl Named Guy. Now, today we're talking about a very important topic that I think affects every single one of us. And we're talking about energy. And I know a lot of my listeners are used to hearing me talk about energy in the form of energy healing and energy as it relates to spirit. But today we're talking about how to increase our energy physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually so that we can all feel more alive and vital in our lives. And there's not a better guest in the world than we have today, which is Dr. Thomas Hemingway. He is a medical doctor, but also a holistic and integrative practitioner. And he's an author as well, a new book called PREVENTABLE. His whole work is based on prevention over prescription, which I really love. And I think a lot of you do too. We're so eager to get power back in our hands to take care of ourselves in the way that is best fit for us. So without further ado, let me introduce you to Dr. Thomas. Hi, Dr. Thomas.
Aloha, Leah. So great to be with you. So happy to finally be with you on your show. Such a pleasure and just truly a blessing.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So Dr. Thomas wears a lot of hats. As I said, he's an MD that focuses on holistic and integrative medicine. He's also an author, and he also leads his own podcast, which is a top-rated podcast called
The Modern Medicine Movement.
The Modern Medicine Movement. And hopefully you'll hear me on that podcast as well pretty soon and talking about a different topic. But today I wanted to have Thomas on to talk to us about what it is to increase healthily our energy. And we're not just talking about physical energy. However, that is a major component, but we're also not just talking about popping a bunch of supplements or energy drinks to try to feel like we can get through the day. So Thomas, I want to hear from you, from your perspective with your clients and your patients. Where do you think people experience a lack of energy primarily? Their physical energy and or mental, emotional energy, or just overall blah?
Yeah, I think the recognizable form is really for most people their physical energy, because that's what they notice when they first get up in the morning. If they're feeling tired, if they're feeling exhausted, maybe it's the afternoon slump. It's a physical thing first and foremost, what they recognize, but that plays into so deeply into their mind, into their spirituality, into their full body, holistic person, because those things cannot be separated. And I think once you address each of those parts, both the physical part as well as the mental, spiritual, emotional, then those things can really synergistically just up the energy levels through the roof. And they can't just be dealt with in isolation. I really feel like you got to work with them together.
Okay.
And so
yeah. So, a lot of us, all of us have been through quite a few years here. And aside from COVID and the different things going on in our world with the wars and the gunshot firing, I think most of us have some form of adrenal fatigue, probably. On top of that, we've had a lot of loss. We've had job changes. There's a lot of reasons why people are tired, and they're just kind of tired overall. So physically, let's start there, because as you say, most of us experience that physical lack of energy primarily. And what about adrenal fatigue? I've heard some doctors say that's not even a real thing. So tell us what the adrenals are, and is there such a thing as adrenal fatigue, and what we can do to help support our body in that way?
Yeah, so first and foremost, absolutely, yes, adrenal fatigue is a real thing. It's documented. And if you study hormone levels, it's something that is easy to recognize. Just the terminology from sort of the classic Western medicine approach has not been one that's been classically taught in medical school, let's say, but we can see the effects of it each and every day. Primarily, as you've mentioned, the last couple of years, people are really, really what I call tired yet wired. So at the end of the day, we're exhausted. We just have so much that we've been going through, whether it be on sort of an emotional level, all the stressors that we've seen with the media, with our own personal lives, with illness, with all the other things that you mentioned. Those things are affecting our adrenal glands, because our adrenal glands are basically where our stress hormones are released. So you've heard of the classic epinephrine, norepinephrine. They're released from the adrenal glands in response to the stress that we experience. And so what happens is when we are constantly bombarded with stimuli, and if it's stressful, especially like in the last couple of years, our adrenals are literally working overtime, and they're just pumping out these stress hormones, which can, not only, briefly kind of pep us up, but over the long term, they drain us out, because, you can't run a system ragged, anyone in your body, for that matter, over a long period of time without giving it the appropriate rest. And so the adrenals can get tired out or fatigued because they're literally responding to constant bombardment of stress. And that can actually be measured. You can measure it in the blood, you can measure it in a urine test. So those that say adrenal fatigue doesn't exist, they just need to look at the data. It does exist.
Yeah. So, thinking about the last few years in particular, and I don't want to always harp on the COVID years. However, it's the one thing that we can all relate to together, and it has been very impactful. Some people would say, well, I should be more fit and rested than I was before because I don't commute anymore. I don't have the stress of this or that. And yet we have to look at what the stress or how the stressors have changed, but they're still there. The negative news, not moving our bodies. I know I was one who gained weight during the COVID season. Even though I kept taking my walks and exercising, there was a lot more time to stress eat or to not commute and run around town because people weren't going anywhere. Right. So our daily lives and routines have changed. And I think most of us are taking in a good amount of negative stimuli, as you say, from the news and media and friends and coworkers and everywhere else, right?
Yeah, no, I think that's a huge part. And what happens, most of us don't realize it at the time, because that's just kind of what we're all sort of doing, right? We're soaking in all this information, we're trying to process it. But let's just be, sort of matter of fact about it. And the news media, they use kind of this slogan, if it bleeds, it leads, right? It has to be kind of dramatic and sensational and kind of get us riled up. Like that's the kind of stuff that sells the story, but that's not the kind of stuff that's good for our, whole self. It's not the stuff that we get invigorated by. Like we get the opposite. We get drained by it because exactly those stress hormones go up, and then eventually we get kind of drained. And then at the end of the day, we're exhausted, yet we can't fall asleep because our minds are still racing because of these different things that we've been stimulated with, whether it be new stuff, or it's just the simple act of being on our devices so often. We could be, trying to wind down by binge watching our favorite show on Netflix or whatever, but just having that constant digital stimulation can actually, in the end, can tire us out, even though we're not moving our body. One would think, well, how could we be so tired? We haven't maybe done a big workout or whatever. Well, it's what's interesting about that. Let's just talk about it for a second, is when we do move our body, it's actually the antithesis of what you would think. You would think that, according to the law of thermodynamics that says that matter cannot be created nor destroyed, when we burn energy, you would think that we would have less of it. Well, that's actually not the way that it works in the body. The more energy that we consume through exercise, for example, we actually increase our energy production through these tiny little things called mitochondria that actually get better at producing energy, the more we use them. And the more we use them in a healthful way through moving our body, through exercise, we actually can generate more energy. So I think some of us think, gosh, I don't have the energy to get up off the couch. But then when we do it, let's just say it's 5 or 10 minutes of a walk around our block or whatever. How do we feel afterwards? Usually it kind of gets us more awake, more energized, more vital. So it's kind of like a little bit of the converse of what we might think. We actually get energized by moving our body and consuming, the energy that we require to
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That's a good reminder. Cause I think I know even I fall into that category. Sometimes I feel like, well, I've run around my house and up and down the steps 100 times today. I don't want to wear myself out too much, or, I'm going to be exhausted by the end of the day. But like you say, once I get to moving, it all starts opening up and feeling better. Now, you mentioned a good phrase, I'm tired, but wired. You can sign me up on that list sometimes. And I'm sure many people. So what would you say to those folks who, whether it's that intake of negative news messaging or just people who worry a lot, stress a lot, have a million things on their mind, when you're wired but tired and your adrenals are imbalanced or fatigued or exhausted, what are some tips that you would give to us to help create health?
Yes. Yeah. So especially at the end of the day, if we want to be able to rest and get a nice quality, 7, 8, 9 hours of sleep, the best way to kind of get rid of that tired and wired is to have a wind down sort of approach. So I've often used what I call a 3-2-1 approach, which is 3 hours before bed, try to stop the eating window. So just like we have a nighttime curfew, we should actually have a food curfew as well, because if we're eating right up until the moment we go to bed, that actually gets our bodies going. It takes a lot of energy to actually digest our food. Most people don't really think about that, but it's actually pretty energy intensive. So if you eat right before you lay down, your body's amped and going just to try to digest that food, and you're not going to be able to really get into a restful, peaceful state. So I try to go 3 hours before I lay down without eating any calories. You can have a glass of herbal tea or a cup of tea or water or whatever. I don't recommend you drink too much water, because then you wake up having to pee in the middle of the night, and that's not great, right? We want to have a full night's rest. But 3 hours before bed, stop the eating. 2 hours before bed, ideally, if we could stop our screen time, would be amazing. I've realized over the years that this is pretty hard for most people, including me. So I've kind of adjusted that 2 hour window down to about a 1 hour window where I stop looking at screens, whether it be television or checking my email or any kind of device, just turn that off, because the blue lights literally wake us up. They tell us, hey, it's still time to get going. They don't allow the melatonin to be secreted and allow us to get into that restful state when we have our eyes looking at any kind of blue light. So if you have to work, I recommend blue light blocking glasses. But if you can at least I think all of us can do 1 hour of a curfew of blue lights before bed. And in that hour, people say, what the heck am I going to do for an hour? Well, there's so many amazing things to do. For me, I love to jump in the hot tub or a hot bath and just kind of relax. I love to journal. Have a little journal where I write a couple of things from the day that I'm grateful for, a couple of thoughts I've had, or just read a book. And I'm talking like old school reading a book. I'm not talking about the Kindle. I'm talking you grab a book and you page through it with a dim, old school light, not a LED light, but like if you still have some of these old school amber lights, or you can get one. There's amber and red colored lights that aren't going to jack up your circadian rhythm like the blue lights will from a device, a Kindle or whatever. Read a paper book through a dimmer light and have that final hour before you hit the pillow to just do things that are relaxing for you. So it's different for everybody. Maybe for you, it's a hot bath. Maybe for me, it's read a book. Maybe for somebody else, it's journal, or all of the above. So that's what I'd recommend in that tired or wired window, how to get yourself settled to have an amazing sleep.
Yeah, that's good. So in other words, we all need to stop working at like 4 p.m. so that we have enough time to watch our Netflix and look at our phones and do all the scrolling and shop online, and then start the 3 hour wind down. Another thing, I like to do meditation at night, or listen to a meditation, a guided music, or a sleep meditation, or yoga nidra is a great thing to do at light. And also, I don't do this enough, but when I do it, I love it. Either use candlelight or like a very small, I have this star in my bedroom that has a very small bulb, and it's just like this ambient light that is peaceful, but I can still see and do things in my space. So I love those tips about the reading and the kind of light that we should be reading by, because it helps so many people. Now, I want to ask, well, let me tell you what happened to me with melatonin before I ask you what you think about melatonin. I started taking the smallest milligram, like 0.25 milligram, because when I took too much, it would give me like a melatonin hangover. And when I took just 0.25 up to 0.5 of a milligram, I would fall asleep. But I did that for about a year through COVID, because I also heard melatonin was good for the immune system and, for viral protection and all that. But maybe it's just my time of life, or maybe because I changed my diet or whatever, my hormones really got altered during this time. The sleep cycle got strange. I feel like my face is puffy, weight gain without changing as I mentioned, but I really didn't change my diet that much. And then I finally started doing some deep dive into melatonin. And there was a bit of research that said, if you're at a specific perimenopause, menopause time of your life, that melatonin can influence the other hormones. Is that true? And what do you think about melatonin for people who can't sleep?
Yeah, so great questions. And I'll tackle the first one about whether or not people should just take melatonin, or what do I think about it in general. So if I had to compare melatonin with other more potent pharmacological sleep aids like benzodiazepines and things like that, I would say I would prefer somebody take melatonin rather than some of these really hefty, pharmaceutical grade sleep aids, whatever they may be, Ambien and the like, for lack of, I think most people have heard of that, but it falls into sort of the class of, benzodiazepine type drugs, which are not great for anything other than 1 or 2 days at a time. If you really, really had to sleep for some reason, you're having issues, you had a surgery, whatever, like in the hospital, things like that. But definitely those kind of sleep aids, pharmacological, if you can slowly get weaned off of them from your doctor, is great. Melatonin is at least less kind of, potent and side effect prone than those. Those have significantly dangerous side effect profiles, including in the long term. They shrink your brain. It's kind of like alcohol over the long term. It actually shrinks your brain. So those aren't good ones to be on. But melatonin, at least it's a natural hormone that your body makes anyway. But when you start taking it regularly, just like you experience, you can't expect that it won't have other downstream effects. All of the hormones talk to one another. It's not like you take one and it's a vacuum and it only affects that one pathway. It affects every other hormone that you have. And so what I would recommend for people that need to try something for a limited time, melatonin is great because at least it is natural, but it should still really be viewed as something for short-term sleep enhancement, especially during things like travel. If you get, like for me, when I travel, I often travel across 6 time zones. And so if I do take melatonin, I might take it for the first 1 or 2 nights of my travel, and then I stop. I try not to take it or really anything every single day, because then it really starts to have potential downstream effects with your other hormones. So melatonin is good because it's natural, but like you notice, you got to try to find the least, effective dose. So the smallest effective dose for you. And you were in the very small dose that most people would start at 2 or 4 or even 6 milligrams. So you were way at the lower end, but everybody is different. And so I'm glad that you recognize that you didn't need to take bigger amounts. And then over the long term, you're like, hey, this is maybe not the best thing for me. It's starting to affect other hormones. And I would expect that. And so I don't recommend anybody take it forever or for months or years. But if you have to take it, especially for things like jet lag that come up once in a while, totally fine, but use the smallest effective dose for the shortest duration possible. And I have a couple other tips for jet lag if you guys want to hear them as well.
Okay. Well, let's get to that in just a minute. But so what I've learned so far that I just want to recap for people is obviously exercise increases energy. And so whatever amount that we can move our body, the more we move our body, we train our body to output more energy levels. So even when we're tired, is there a point where we're too exhausted that we shouldn't keep, whether it's that adrenal fatigue or a lot of fibromyalgia or general stress cycles, where we shouldn't push our body too much to try to increase that energy? What's your take on that?
So I would say really the only time to not be exercising is if we are actively ill with something. If we're sick with some illness, or we just had a surgery or things like that, where we're actually supposed to be getting rest for our body to heal, that's really the only time we shouldn't be doing significant exercise. When we are otherwise okay, whether we have adrenal fatigue, fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue syndrome, any one of these conditions where we don't have a lot of energy, in basically every one of those, exercise has been shown to help. And I actually was looking at a study this morning that looked exactly at that with folks that have chronic fatigue syndrome and fibromyalgia, and daily exercise, even though it may be something very brief, say 10 minutes, 15 minutes, that actually significantly helped these individuals over the short and the long term. So there's really not a great evidence-based reason to not exercise, except if you have acute illness.
Okay.
Otherwise, exercise, even for those that have fatigue, whether it be chronic fatigue, adrenal fatigue, fibromyalgia, actually exercise will actually help that. It'll even help arthritis, believe it or not. And that seems counterintuitive, but it will.
Oh, that's awesome. That's good to know. So exercise anytime that you can, as much as you can, without overdoing it. And adrenal fatigue is real, and we all need good quality sleep. And in the sleep aids, we want to practice the 3-2-1, getting rid of electronics. What was the first one?
First one was don't eat
don't
within
eat
3
3
hours. That's probably one of the most important. 3 hours before bed, try not to eat. Then electronics. The last one I actually didn't mention was you probably shouldn't exercise within 1 hour of bedtime, because the exercise kind of pumps you up. It gets you awake. It gets your
Right.
blood flowing, so to speak, and your hormones, get a little pepped up, which is great if it's trying to get through your workday. Like every hour, I recommend people take like a 3 to 5 minute exercise break every 1 hour to increase their performance at work, whether that be standing at their desk doing air squats, or walking up and down the steps at your office, or going around the block, something simple. But at the end of the day, within about 1 hour, you probably don't want to do vigorous exercise because it will keep you awake.
Okay. Now let me back up just a little bit, because I think I'm a pretty healthy person, but according to some of this information, I might be off a little bit. I sometimes struggle. Maybe I stay up too late or whatever, but with the blood sugar balancing, right? Always have. And so I pretty much know how to eat to keep that regulated. But before I go to bed, if I'm hungry at all, I cannot sleep. I stay up all night and I almost have this vibration in my body, or like this strange energy that keeps me up. And so then I'll run down and get a little snack and then, go back to bed. But if I eat enough, so should we have big enough dinners, I guess you're saying, then, to make sure it tides us over until the morning?
Yeah, the most important thing, especially at night, is to pack your meal with protein, something that's satiating. So whether it be plant protein, animal protein, whatever you're eating in your diet that's natural, that's whole food, protein is so critical, especially in the evening. One, because it's satiating. Also, healthy fats. For example, for me, my favorite healthy fat is just avocado. I eat avocado several times a day because, number one, I just love it, but it's also satiating because it's a healthy fat. And the least helpful thing, which most of us go to, is carbohydrates at bedtime, right? Or a glass of milk, or some little snack that we have right before bed, a banana or something that kind of gets our blood sugar up so we don't feel hungry, so we can go to sleep. But what's interesting about that is when we have carbs before bed, we can get to sleep, because in the short term, they satiate just briefly that hunger pain or what have you, that feeling. But 2 or 3 hours later, our blood sugar will actually dip, because our body's like, hey, that big carbohydrate load that we just ate is now going down, because your body secreted insulin, which its job is to keep blood sugar from getting too high in the body. And when we eat carbs, it often overshoots. So you have a little bit of a dip in that blood sugar called hypoglycemia, which can actually wake you up. So if you eat too many carbs right at bedtime, you might fall asleep, but maybe 3 or 4 hours later, you'll wake up because your body thinks that you're hungry because you had a little bit of a dip in your blood sugar. So much better at night is to stack your meal more with proteins and healthy fats, and a little bit lower on the carbs, especially if you do a late night snack, like right before bed. Try to not do carbs in that snack. Maybe have a handful of macadamia nuts, or some kind of nut that you like, or something that's not carbohydrate laden as a bedtime snack would actually be much better for you metabolically speaking, but it'll actually help you to sleep better than having some carbohydrate snack, because you might just wake up a few hours later with a little bit of that rebound hypoglycemia that wakes you up. So yeah, you really have to pick that snack carefully. And so I'm not saying you can't snack, but especially at bedtime, try to keep that to more of a healthy fat or healthy protein and not carbohydrates right at bedtime. You can have them with your dinner, but not right at bedtime.
Okay. And then we also learned that melatonin is better than the pharmaceutical drugs. However, you don't want to stay on melatonin long-term either, because there could be some long-term effects of that hormonally. Correct. That are reversible, I hope. I don't know. Are
yes, they? Absolutely. Yeah, reversible for sure. Definitely reversible. Absolutely.
Okay, good. So before we move on to the mental and emotional, my favorite topics of energy and so forth, and the energy field itself, do you have any other tips for us physically just to help us feel more vibrant and alive? Are there certain little things?
Absolutely. One big thing, which is little because it's easy, but it's big because it encompasses everything, is really just the food that we eat on a day-to-day basis, both for our meals and our snacks. Like literally, food is the best medicine we could ever eat and should be the best medicine and the most frequent medicine, or food can actually be a slow poison depending on our choices. And I'll offer, which I'll keep super simple right here, is basically if we can stick to real whole foods and not highly processed ones. So basically avoid what I call the 3 B's: food that comes in a bag or in a box or with a barcode. So basically anything processed, try to really avoid those and just eat things that you recognize: fruits, vegetables, whatever kind of protein that you eat that's natural, that's not processed with 100 ingredients. Like that's the most basic of all basic food rules, because food will give you the energy that your body needs, wants, and desires, or it'll do the opposite. It'll give you a very quick short-term fix, like those highly processed carbs, and it'll leave you hangry 2 hours later. So a lot of people just say eliminate sugar, and that's the starting point. Absolutely eliminate sugar, especially high fructose corn syrup, but also the highly processed grains and flours. And one kind of untalked about thing in many areas is just the seed oils that are in almost everything that comes in a bag, box, or with a barcode. Things like soybean oil, sunflower oil, safflower oil. And these are super highly processed and they're very inflammatory. So if you just go back to rule number 1, which is eat real food, the stuff that comes from the field that grows in nature, that's probably the most helpful tip I could give anybody, is just eat real food and try to avoid the processed stuff, and you're going to be so much better off and be way fuller of energy, because those processed foods, though they may buy you 1 or 2 hours at a time, you're going to crash to a deeper low after that. And overall, you're going to be more devoid of energy. So try to stay away from the snack foods, the power bars, all these kind of things that we think are supposed to give us energy, because in the long term, they just really don't.
Yeah. Or as we say, also shop the perimeter of the store, right?
Absolutely.
Shop the perimeter of the store and kind of reduce the aisles. You'll be in better shape. I think your mic's still hitting a little bit, Thomas.
Okay. Yeah, I got it. Okay.
Yeah. Yep. Thanks. Okay. So before we move on, I want to ask, and you have to be honest about this. Well, you don't have to, but I hope you would be. Knowing that you know all about all of this, what's your favorite junk food?
Yeah, always. That's a really easy one for me. I'm just kind of a guy that likes cream. Like ice cream has always been.
I knew you were going to say ice cream.
It's always my kryptonite.
I figured it was ice cream. Okay.
But yeah, so I do have it occasionally. I used to eat it every single night because I didn't understand that it could affect me. I thought as long as I exercise every day, it doesn't matter that much what I eat. Well, I've learned my lesson. I'm turning 50 next year, and things just aren't the same as you get a little bit more down that road. And you can't eat junk food every single day, no matter how much you exercise. You can't outrun the tip of your fork. But I do eat some, sweets occasionally, but just not every day.
Yeah. I'm a sweet tooth too. I prefer the brownies and the cookies kind of thing, or even some of the protein bars. I like the consistency, and I've convinced myself, well, this is a better snack, but I hear you. Okay. So let's talk about the way our energy is affected. And let's just go ahead and tie the emotion and mental aspects together, because I believe that every emotion has a thought and every thought has an emotion. They're very closely linked, And certainly before we even dive into this, I just want to say, for people who are struggling with emotional or mental health, one, of course, there's no shame in that. And two, sometimes we need to surrender and not be so hard on ourselves. So I don't want this information or conversation to be like, you should do this and you need to get out of bed and you should exercise, even though you don't feel like even, waking up today. We know these things have a positive effect, but also there's the reality that some people are in a stage of their life where they're really struggling, and yet they still want to be and feel better. So, so let's talk about emotional and mental energy. What I know for sure, and I feel confident that you will support me in this, is that when you have a chronic, low grade or inflamed emotional scenario that is either negative, difficult, traumatic, or otherwise just uncomfortable, it takes an enormous amount of energy for your body to process that, correct?
Yeah, 100%. Couldn't agree more.
Yes. And that when we, if, or when we don't process that event or feeling experience, we then can have physical ramifications of that dis-ease, however you want to talk about it, that starts to settle in our body and in our mind and in our emotional and in relationships and so forth. So this is a really, really important aspect, I believe, of getting one's energy to a certain point of vitality and optimal health, is looking at our emotional and mental health and energy there. What's available, And so if I'm going through something tragic, I don't have a lot of energy available for most anything else, particularly mind emotional, because it's all kind of being consumed with that. So I want to validate that for people and know, we know this is real. And I hope everyone knows it's not this little side thing that's going on and it shouldn't affect our life. No, it does. It affects who we are and our experience right now. So having said that, what are some of the things that you think about when you are working with a patient who is having emotional distress or mental health issues or combination of those things? How do you coach or prescribe or support a patient in that scenario?
Yeah. So first, I think first and foremost, you just have to ask the questions. You have to recognize it. And I'm so thankful that you bring this up, because I think this is what separates me a little bit from a traditional Western trained doctor is I think traditionally don't put a lot of emphasis in these things. And it's not because I don't think that many of us believe that they matter. It's just a lot of us weren't trained very much in these things. And it takes a little bit of time. And a lot of us are so hard pressed to just get through the day, see our 50 patients, whatever it is. And you can't dig deep and really get into these kinds of things in a 5-minute visit. And so number one, we just have to recognize that how important these issues are and how much they can play into overall health. And so just having that recognition that it does matter. And then maybe the ability to recognize, okay, this person needs additional help here. Who can they also see? Is it someone like you that's amazing at energy work and things like that? Is it somebody that's more into the psychotherapy? Like what do they need? Because it's often several. We need a team. It's not just one individual, right? We need the whole team to really help us improve in these areas. Because what I found in many occasions is that once we address all these kind of knee-jerk things like diet, exercise, sleep, and things like that, the other issue that we often neglect is the emotional, the spiritual, the psychological, that can really weigh in as much as any one of these other things, and is often both under recognized, underappreciated, and just not really given the time and the emphasis that it needs, because that can really be the game changer. So thank you for even bringing it up, number one, because it is so powerful. And most physicians underappreciate, underrecognize, and undertreat in this area. So and I think too, I hope, and again, I want to make it really clear here. I'm not saying that any prescriptions that are available for things like depression or anxiety are bad, because I don't believe they are bad. I believe some people need them, critically need them.
And I also hope that the day is coming to an end where if I'm experiencing or someone is experiencing depression or anxiety or what have you, that we don't just go to our general practitioner and say, hi, I'm depressed. Can you give me something to fix that? And, there's so many more people. And I know everyone's schedules are still tight, but there is so much more support out there with a variety of different types of therapy and healing and group work and so forth, more than ever before, that is available out there. And I hope with this system that is somewhat changing, that the doctors become aware too, as you said, ask the question of what else do they need here? I believe doctors need to be versed, not on the emotional healing part, but on they need to have a team at their fingertips of saying, okay, this is one of the best psychotherapists I know. This is the best IFS person. This is the best trauma person. This is the best divorce person. This is the best grief expert, because those people need to be referred to support the patient. And when we take medicine into our own hands, we need to also know that there are specialists and different people out there. So when I think about in the healing world, and gaining new energy, vitality in my mind and my emotions and in my body, I go to the higher vibration feelings of gratitude or joy. A lot of people can't relate to peace because they're not in peace. And so it's hard to chase peace. But I think most people can relate to gratitude. And even if they have to pull up a memory of joy, remember something that brings joy to their life. So those, they sound kind of very mainstream, and they are, but I think they're two very good anchor points that we can go to. You also mentioned journaling. I'm a huge fan of journaling too. A variety of styles of journaling and unfiltered journaling. Do you have any other thoughts, or even from your own experience, of what have helped you out of some dark days to help regain your energy and vitality and feel more balanced when you're feeling depressed or sad or overwhelmed? What is it for you?
Yeah. So a lot of what you just said, one is just recalling something super joyful. For me, I got 6 kids. I can remember the birth of each one of them. And like, last night was my daughter's, she's 7 now. It was her birthday. And I actually remembered, I was so proud of myself. I remembered that she was born on a Friday. I don't know why I remembered that, but I remembered she was born on a Friday, and I Googled it just to make sure. And I was right. It was a Friday. And I just remember when she came into this world, she's my first daughter. I got 4 boys, and then she's number 5 and our first daughter. And just the joy that brought into my life, having a daughter. Daughters are so special, so different than boys. I thought I was destined to be just a boy dad, and she changed my life, and then I had a second daughter, and now they've both changed my life. But recalling joyous moments in your life, it only takes a minute or two. Just going back and bringing that to your memory is, I think, foundational and simple. It's not hard. Most of us have had something we just really, some time it just makes us smile to even think about it. I'm smiling right now because I'm thinking about that moment. And what I do is I'll recall a moment like that while I go outside for a walk. For me, being in nature and just feeling the wind on my face, maybe a little bit of sunshine, the old-fashioned vitamin D, having my body out to kind of, my senses open to hear nature, to feel the sunshine, to have the wind on my face, and to recall a beautiful moment, or just have gratitude for a beautiful moment in my life, like that can change my state almost as quick as anything. And I give that as a go-to to most people, because I think, like you said, we can often recall a time where we were just elated, like some joyous moment, whatever that
Right.
might be. And it doesn't take more than a couple of minutes. It's pretty fast, and that can change your whole, current state. So I love to revisit those moments. I try to do it daily. When I'm on my game, I'm doing it every single day. And sometimes I'll get off track and skip a day or two, but it's something I like to do every day.
Yeah. Well, so do you practice meditation at all?
So I love meditation. I do an abbreviated meditation most
Yeah.
days. I don't do like an hour long or even 30-minute
Right.
long. I do about a 10 to 15,
Yeah.
maybe 20 minute, depending on the day. But I do practice meditation. But I think a lot of us that have never done it get intimidated because we think it has to be a certain way. And I would just say with meditation, it's just like exercise. Whatever amount you can do is going to be better than doing nothing. Even if it's 2 minutes, even just take some deep breaths for 1 minute, like that can be your meditation. Just start with something. And if, you and I know all the different types, you can focus on a word, you can focus on a sound, you don't have to choose any, super detailed form, but just do something. Anything is going to be powerful, and it can even be short. There's even research to show that 5 to 7 minutes of daily meditation can be significantly powerful over, the weeks and months, and it can actually change your brain. And there's so many benefits, and it doesn't have to be these 30 to 60 to 90 to 120 minute, sessions.
No. Who has time for that anymore?
Yeah.
But, I think too, people think, oh, it's not going to work for me, or I don't have the energy because I feel so bad. It's hard to self-motivate, and I get that there's this whole kind of, we can get in the spiral with our lower feelings, and it can be really hard to pull out of that. When we think about increasing our energy and vitality, I often think, sometimes the doing nothing, which meditation is great for, the doing nothing, don't even think you're meditating, just go, I'm going to sit here and do nothing for a few minutes and just close my eyes and feel my breath. And in the doing nothing, we might just find a little bit more space, a little bit more capacity within us to have different experiences. So to stop the spiraling down, and again, not that difficult feelings are bad, because they're not, we all have them, but we are in charge of how we experience our lives, our days, our moments, and any of these techniques that we can do to help elevate or expand into ourselves, I think all the better. And same mentally, these tools aren't just to distract us. They actually have a healing component that sometimes can be very subtle. And I think that's why people get frustrated, whether you're tapping or breathing or meditating or yoga or whatever, the effects are really subtle, but they're there. And we notice the effects of certain things, even like herbs, I think, or supplements, when we don't do them and when we don't take them. We think, I don't know if it's really doing anything or not. And then you stop doing it altogether. It's like, oh boy, that must have been doing something, right? Because I don't feel as good or vital. So I think trusting our own intuition and trusting our own self, but also remembering that there is a slew of support out there. There's a slew of support, like people like you and myself. So I know that you have this new book called Preventable. And what's the subtitle? It's a long one, so I couldn't remember it.
Yeah. Five powerful practices to avoid disease and build unshakable health.
Okay, great. Yeah, that's a good title. So, and it's a book full of promises, I guess, for people, but I'm sure it's a very impactful read. So your whole outlook on medicine in general, not just with gaining your energy, but medicine in general, is to prevent rather than to prescribe. Yes?
Yes. I mean, it's just what our grandmothers taught us, right? An ounce of prevention is worth way more than a pound of cure. And I think that resonates today as much as any point in history. In fact, I think more, really.
Yeah, I do too. So in the prevention, you mostly, I know you said food as medicine is number one, primarily.
Yeah.
Then I would guess movement, exercise.
Yeah, that's in there.
Yeah. Can you give us another one or two as far as the prevention?
Yeah. So the optimizing your sleep is super important. And there's lots of stuff you could talk about with circadian rhythm. So I won't get into it right now, but also one that we are talking about right now is just how to deal with and really make stress something that you can grow from and that can actually improve your life. Because all of us will have stress. The last couple of years, we've had a ton of stress, but it's really how we choose to give meaning to that stress that will make all the difference. And I love this study from 2012, which looked at 180,000 people and looked at whether they rated their stress as high, medium, or low. And we would often think that those with high stress would have the worst health outcomes. And some of them did, but it was only within that group of high stress, it was only those that believed that the stress was negative, that believed that it would cause them harm either in a health perspective or in other facets of their life. It was the belief that they attributed to it. So we have that power within us. We get to decide how we can give meaning to this. Is it going to be a growth thing? Are we going to pivot? Like during COVID, many of us had to pivot with our work, with our businesses, with our kids. They're all of a sudden they're at home, whatever that may be. We had to pivot and go, hey, what a blessing. I get to spend time with my kids. Like, how amazing is this? Like, typically I shuttle them away for 8 hours a day, and now they get to be with me. It's the meaning that we attach to it that can make all the difference. So optimizing stress. And then the final one, number 5, is just really getting our gut healthy, the so-called microbiota or microbiome. That's kind of this tag word nowadays in health and wellness, how to get your gut healthy, because that really impacts all of these other aspects and is foundational as well. So those are the 5 things, and I get into it in the book.
Yeah, that's awesome. All very important. And I'm, behind you all the way with that. I'm a person that maybe goes to the opposite extreme of many people. Like, I'll only take a prescription or a pill if I'm dying. I have like a cupboard in my cupboard. There's 2 or 3 or 4 prescriptions, and I just keep them there in case I'm dying. But if I'm not, I'm going to do everything else first. So I hear you there, and I appreciate that. And of course, some people have to take medicine, and we're grateful for modern medicine. We're grateful for traditional allopathic therapy and doctors and so forth. Much gratitude, because they're necessary and needed. However, our day to day, I think we can have a lot more control than what we often take. So any other final words from you, Dr. Thomas, about how to increase your energy and feel like $1 million every day?
Oh, it starts with what I call people have written books on this called the miracle morning. Well, I don't have an hour every morning to do this stuff. So I call it, I have a 5-step process I can tell you in 30 seconds. So the 3 T's is what I like to start with. One is just give thanks. Take literally 30 seconds and give thanks for a couple of things. The next is take time to think. Make a list of 2 or 3 things that you really, really need to do today to move the needle. And the third is to touch. Take time to touch, whether that be to hug your family member, your pet, or to walk barefoot outside for a minute and get grounded. Do something that involves touch. And then I just like to get outside briefly for a little bit of movement, whatever that may be, and some sunshine in the morning. So those are the 5 things I like to start my day with. Take time to think, take time to think, take time to touch, and then a little movement and sunshine. And that can be done in 5 to 10 minutes. You don't need that 1 hour miracle morning that many of us just can't figure out how to incorporate that into our lives.
Yeah, that's all great advice. And you live in Hawaii, yes?
Yes.
So you have plenty of sunshine and
plenty of
air.
sunshine. Yeah, lots of fresh air. It's pretty easy to get out any day of the year, even if it's raining. It's never cold. But we do spend some time in the mountains, and I love to get out into the crisp, cold, fresh mountain air. That wakes you up. That's one way to wake up quickly. Go out in a t-shirt in the mountain air.
Yeah, that's great. Well, thank you so much for being here and for all of your wisdom. And for those who are interested more in Thomas's work, his links will be available in the show notes and also on the YouTube screen. And we hope to hear more from you and your work in the near future as well. So thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. Just a pleasure to be here. Easiest way for people to connect just on Instagram is Dr. Thomas Hemingway. That's just Dr. Thomas Hemingway and or ThomasHemingway.com. Those are super easy places. And it's just been a pleasure, Leah. I can't wait to have you on my show as well, Modern Medicine Movement. We'll get you on there real soon. It'll be such a pleasure.
Super. I look forward to it. And to everyone else, I hope you have a fantastic day. And we will see you next week on the Modern Sage podcast. Take good care.